Suryanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Parivajagacharya Sotara Satashi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Shri Vrindavan Dhamma Ki Jai. Shri Shri Mathura Dhamma Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dhamma Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Shri Shri Krishna Balaram Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shama Veda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritram Naram Shaivam Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadeshu Natyam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shlokir Bhavati Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 1st chapter. Yeah. Text number 12, is that right? Put some specs on, I can see better. Kim pramatasya bahuvi Bhakshair hayanairiha Parokshair hayanairiha Paramuhurtam viditam Gatate shayase yataha Kim pramatasya bahuvi Parokshair hayanairiha Varam muhurtam viritam Gatate shreyase yataha Kim, what is? Pramatasya, of the bewildered. Bahubihi, by many. Prayokshahai, inexperienced. Hayanahai, years. Iha, in this world. Varam, better. Muhurtam, a moment. Viditam, conscious. Ghatate, one can try for. Shreyase, in the matter of the supreme interest. Yataha, by that. Translation, what is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. Repeat. What is the value of a prolonged life? What is the value of a prolonged life? Which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world. Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Sukadeva Goswami instructed Maharaj Parikshit about the importance of the chanting of the holy name of the Lord by every progressive gentleman. In order to encourage the king, who had only 7 remaining days of life, Sri Shukadeva Goswami asserted that there is no use in living hundreds of years without any knowledge of the problems of life. Better to live for a moment with full consciousness of the supreme interest to be fulfilled. The supreme interest of life is eternal, with full knowledge and bliss. Those who are bewildered by the external features of the material world and are engaged in animal propensities of the eat, drink, and be merry type of life are simply wasting their lives by the unseen passing away of valuable years. We should know in perfect consciousness that human life is bestowed upon the conditioned soul to achieve spiritual success, and the easiest possible procedure to attain this end is to chant the holy name of the Lord. In the previous verse, we have discussed this point to a certain extent, and we may further be enlightened on the different types of offenses committed unto the feet of the holy name. Sri Jiva Goswami Prabhu has quoted many passages from authentic scriptures and has ably supported his statements in the matter of offenses at the feet of the holy name. From Vishnu Yamala Tantra, Srila Jiva Goswami has proven that one can be liberated from the effects of all sins simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Quoting from the Markandeya Purana, Sri Goswami Ji says that one should neither blaspheme the devotee of the Lord nor indulge in hearing others who are engaged in belittling a devotee of the Lord. A devotee should try to restrict the vilifier by cutting out his tongue, and being unable to do so, one should commit suicide rather than hear the blaspheming of the Lord or the devotee of the Lord. The conclusion is that one should neither hear nor allow vilification of a devotee of the Lord. As far as distinguishing the Lord's holy name from the names of the demigods, the revealed scriptures disclose, Bhagavad Gita 10:41, that all extraordinarily powerful beings are but parts and parcels of the supreme energetic, Lord Krishna. Except for the Lord himself, everyone is subordinate. No one is independent of the Lord. Since no one is more powerful than or equal to the energy of the Supreme Lord, no one's name can be as powerful as that of the Lord. By chanting the Lord's holy name, one can derive all the stipulated energy synchronized from all sources. Therefore, one should not equalize the supreme holy name of the Lord with any other name. Brahma, Shiva, or any other powerful god can never be equal to the Supreme Lord Vishnu. The powerful holy name of the Lord can certainly deliver one from sinful effects, but one who desires to utilize the transcendental potency of the holy name of the Lord in one's sinister activities is the most degraded person in the world. Such persons are never excused by the Lord or by any agent of the Lord. One should therefore utilize one's life in glorifying the Lord by all means, without any offense. Such activity of life, even for a moment, is never to be compared to a prolonged life of ignorance. To a prolonged life of ignorance, like the lives of the trees and other living entities who may live for thousands of years without prosecuting spiritual advancement. Verse again, what is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. Mama Gyanati Mandasya Ganananjana Salakaya Chaksur Udmiditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Maha Mukam Karoti Bachalam Bongum Longaya Tegidam Yatkari Pataraham Bande Shri Guru Dinatarane. Is that a handlebar mustache? Is that what it's called? Those are pretty rare to see. I've never seen anyone in this day and age. I think it's a thing of the past, isn't it? Handlebar mustaches, anyway. There's an interesting, I guess it's a photograph of Radha Gokulananda, or no, it's the New Dwarka deities, Rukmini and Dwarkadish. And at one point, some of the Bhagavatams have pictures of Radha Gokulananda on them. And at one point, Prabhupada asked me, which do you like better? And in my diplomatic way of answering, I said, there's no comparison. Anyways, they're both very beautiful. So this is a very interesting purport, and in the verse, it's kind of touching on the difference between quantity and quality, and Prabhupada is emphasizing quality over quantity. It doesn't matter if you lived for 1 minute or 1 yuga. It's all kind of futile. Doesn't add up to being a devotee of the Supreme Lord. I read once in a magazine, I think it was Newsweek, something about how people, by replacement of bodily parts by hearts and hands and heads and things like that people's lifespan could be extended, possibly in the future, up to as much as he said anyway in this editorial, 700 years. But he went on to say that if you live for that long, you'll probably be just a robot. You would because the advances in medical science haven't been able to figure out how to replace the brain. They can replace the head, the heart, the hands, the legs, but not the brain, because the brain is a very, very creative part of the human body, and it separates the advanced thinking of a human being separates the human beings from the animals. So it is a very very positive thing. But he was saying that living for a long time isn't necessarily a good thing. Better to have one moment in full consciousness. I think that I heard somewhere that frogs, now that they love the wet, that they can live for a long time, and that someone was digging somewhere, and I think it's Table Mountain in California, in a coal deposit, looking for skeletons or something like that, and a frog jumped out, and it apparently had been living for hundreds and hundreds of years in that, sort of a state of suspended animation or whatever they do, and it was croaking. It was fully alive. It jumped out. But we're kind of dismissive of the intelligence of frogs. I mean, we in the United States we call people of French origins frogs because they eat frogs' legs. I guess that's the reason. But they don't have the same level of intelligent brain substance that humans have. We can see that they run away when there's someone bigger than they are coming close, or when there's a lot of light on the subject. Trees can also live for a very long time, and once I visited a place called Muir Woods, somewhere in California, north of San Francisco, and there's some trees that are very, very old in that area. Redwood trees, and then there's the sequoia trees that have very long lifespans, sometimes over 100 years. But again, they're very compared to human brains, they're very dull. I mean, they have some consciousness, but it's a dull consciousness. There was an Indian scientist, Jagadish Chandra Bose, who played music for plants, and determined that nice music, or nice classical sort of music, caused the plants to foliate more and appear to be happy, whereas heavy metal type of music and just sort of raunchy type of music caused them to droop and not look happy. So there is some consciousness, but again, it's not the advanced consciousness of a human being, not nearly the advanced consciousness of a human being. So what's being said in this verse is that what's the use of living for a long time if you're not Krishna conscious? And in the purport, Prabhupada talks about I guess it's in the verse. The inexperienced person. By inexperience, what is the use of memorizing many stanzas and poems, and what is the use of being very muscular? What is the use of being very attractive and very aristocratic if one doesn't have a sense of who God is, or what I am, or the fact that we're not this body? And one of the things that Prabhupada emphasized was that this concept that we're not the body is not being taught in even the most advanced institutions of learning, like at Harvard and Edinburgh University and Oxford and Cambridge and places like that. They don't really understand. So it's possible for a devotee who has this basic knowledge to have a debate with a very learned person of one of those institutions and come out successful. I mean, it doesn't ordinarily happen that way, but it does happen, and it's happened in the past. There was a case where one of Prabhupada's disciples, I think it was in 1976, thereabouts, was in Sri Lanka. And there was a doctor, somebody or other, in the audience. They speak Sinhalese, I think it was in Ceylon, or what's now Sri Lanka. And they changed the name a few times. Anyway, this person challenged him, and he said that how is it possible that life can come from life? And he said, well, the devotee of Prabhupada said that I'm challenging you. I want you to come up here on the stage, and I will give you all the chemicals that exist in a life form, and I want you to create something alive. And he said, well, I can't do that now, but I certainly will write to you and explain how this can be done. So this debate, this written debate, kind of went on for some time. And the devotee was ultimately victorious, and he offered the man thousands of rupees if he could just come onto the stage and demonstrate how he could create life. And finally the man was defeated, and Prabhupada was very happy to hear that even though this person had a doctorate in chemistry or something, or biology, he was defeated by a person who wasn't nearly as educated as he was. So this philosophy is very unique, that I'm not the body. Of course, one can be liberated, as it were, even if one doesn't understand the whole range of philosophical points. Like one can be an impersonalist and still believe that he's not the body, I'm not the body, he or she. But that's just a baby step or a beginning. What the highest realization is to know that we can have a personal relationship with God or Krishna, and that's a higher form of realization. And generally, people who are liberated in this impersonal realization in the Brahma Jyoti or the oneness, their philosophy is they can merge with God. Generally, they come back to the material world and take up work in the fields of philanthropy, or somehow or other doing good to the human condition, what they call doing good to the human condition. But it's not necessarily. I mean, it does sometimes happen that people in this impersonal realization level can go higher, but generally they come back to the material world and the world that their philosophy said was false or unreal, and try to make it better. So that's a common thing that does happen, and there's a verse that supports this in the 10th canto. It starts ye vrindaksha vimuktamanena, and what it means is that people who are incomplete in their realization stay in the material world for whatever reason. They come back to the material world for whatever reason means that they're trying to better the condition of human life in the world without God, and that's exactly what is happening in the world. I mean, we're very impressed by advances in communication, by advances in technology and medicine especially, and in travel. But anyway, what does it all lead to? It leads to maybe a longer life in the field of medicine. Maybe we can prolong someone's life for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years by performing certain surgical procedures or giving them certain medicines. But this is just like, even if they live for 120 years, it's just a flickering or an eye blink in the sweep of the grand sweep of time, as we learn about yugas, and they're billions and millions and billions of years long. So this lifetime, even a lifetime of 700 years, is very minute, very minuscule compared to the grand sweep of time as it's talked about in the Vedas. I mean, like even Lord Brahma, his one day is so long, it's we can't even calculate it. I mean, we can, but it's imaginable. It's in the billions. And we think that if we can live for 100 years, that's a great achievement or something like that. And in one way it is, because we wish people to have a long life and be happy and all that. That's sort of a kind of common sense to be happy and live a long life, and but again, a life without God is a kind of a useless life. It's just a flickering second, or a minute portion of a second of something that happens so quickly. it seems like a long time to us, but to people like the demigods and to Krishna, it's just a tiny moment in time. And even great scholars or great acharyas like Shankar, who only lived to his mid-30s, and he was an incarnation of Lord Shiva, is a very, very prominent person. Of course, we avoid the philosophy of very intelligent, and flags of Shankar are on top of many of the temples we see in different parts of the world, especially in India. But even though his life in this world was very, very short by comparison to human life, he did a lot. I mean, he wrote a lot of books, and he influenced a lot of people, and he created a whole division of spirituality that's still prominent today. So it's an indication that life is not based on the quantity of years, but on the quality of the life that we obtain. Prabhupada writes, the powerful holy name of the Lord can certainly deliver one from sinful activities, but one who desires to utilize this transcendental potency of the holy name of the Lord in one's sinister activities is the most degraded person in the world. So one of the things that happened in the Krishna consciousness movement is that there was a lot of opposition to it. I mean, there still is, but in earlier times there was even more opposition. And we might go so far as to say that Prabhupada had to fight every inch of the way to expand Krishna consciousness in a basically a hostile environment. I mean, the environment of the world is to eat, drink, and be merry, to live a long time, to take surgical operations when necessary, to better our health with good food and jabs and injections and good medicine. And now we can telephone someone on the other side of the world and talk with them just at the push of a button. So we're, and we're very sort of enamored by these things. I mean, you can also travel to the other side of the world in just a few hours, and even Prabhupada took advantage of those things. But the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is yukta vairagya, that it's okay to use all these wonderful things, this technology, this medicine, these communications facilities, if they're used for Krishna, yukta vairagya, anasaktasya vishayam. It's a famous verse that Rupa Goswami taught and that Prabhupada taught us, that yes, we can do everything for Krishna. We can fix cars, we can build things, we can plant things, we can we have big families. We can do almost everything if it's done in a way that's devotional, it's done for Krishna. That's the yukta vairagya principle. And he's famous for saying that some of the leading acharyas of the age, and some of them are still alive, they think it's wrong to have anything to do with the material world. And their basic mudra is like this, meaning, don't give me anything. I don't want to touch anything. But Prabhupada said my mudra is like this. So money is thought to be filthy lucre or something like that, a horrible thing, but it can be used in the service of God. And Prabhupada, of course, used it to print books of knowledge, but he cautioned devotees not to keep it, not to hoard money, not to keep it in the bank. I've been hearing some discussions that were held when Prabhupada was very ill in health in October of 1977. Even then, he was cautioning devotees not to hoard money. If they get any money to print books, that's what money is for. It's to do service to God, not to create a big palace, or to have many wives, or to have be surrounded by beautiful things and to eat very wonderful foodstuffs. And Lord Chaitanya exhibited this tendency when Maharaj Patra Parudra in Orissa, in Jagannath Puri area, wanted to have an audience with him. And he said it's very sinful for a sannyasi to associate with a person like a king, because a king is always busy. He's busy counting his money, and he's a pound, shilling, pence man. And he's considered, he is still by people who follow the Vedas, they consider people that have that high position in the material world, prime minister or a king, to be sort of enraptured by the material world, to be surrounded by beauty, by good food, by good entertainment, by constantly doing these things. But it's actually a very dangerous position. It's not all flowers and love. There's a story that's called this. I don't know if it's a true or it's a fable, but it's a Greek fable about the sword of Damocles. There was a king called Damocles, and I think his province was Syracuse in Greece. Anyway, one of his servants was kind of envious of him. He thought, well, why is this guy sitting on a chair and he has the best food and the most beautiful women and the best entertainment and and a beautiful palace? Why does he live like this? And why can't I do it? I mean, just a lowly nothing. And so Damocles was sort of aware of this, and he said, okay, I'm going to make you the king for one day. You can sit on my throne. You can do everything I do, and you can eat all my food, and you can experience all the things that are good in life. So he started, and he sat on this throne. And after a while, he realized that there was something dangling above his head, and it was the sword of Damocles, a very heavy sword, very heavy metal sword. I mean, weighed maybe 30 pounds or something like that. I don't know what that is in kilos, but it's very heavy. And if it fell, it was dangling. It was held by a very thin hair, like a horse hair. And he was in such anxiety that somehow this sword would drop and it would slit his head open and he would die, that he couldn't enjoy anything. He couldn't enjoy the food, he couldn't enjoy the girls, he couldn't enjoy the entertainment. And Damocles said to him, well, that's what it's like being the king. There's always people that are trying to kill you. There's always enemies that are at the gate, trying to destroy your empire. And so it's not all love and flowers. It's actually quite difficult. So this is one of the things that the king has to undergo. He has a very nice lifestyle, but at the same time he's in a lot of anxiety because he has a lot of enemies. There's even a plot. I read about this. To murder Mahatma Gandhi, who was considered the father of India. There was a plot. It wasn't just a wild, crazy man, but I read a book. There was a plot, and the guy who pulled the trigger was the only one who could get the gun. And of course, he was eventually executed. But it's kind of interesting that in his confession, he cited the Battle of Kurukshetra and the war between Ravana and Rama to say that sometimes killing is justified. And it's kind of interesting. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a side issue. But and Prabhupada writes that if one hears blasphemy of a devotee, he has to take a very very strong action, like committing suicide or cutting out the tongue. And in another teaching, he says that one should just go away. But you shouldn't hear that sort of thing. The devotees are considered so valuable. There's a saying in I think it's from the Padma Purana. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, and it says that one who thinks he's my devotee, this is Krishna speaking, is not my devotee, but one who thinks he's a devotee of my devotee, that person is my devotee. So that's quoted also in Prabhupada's teachings. I'm not just making it up. It's in the Padma Purana. So are there any comments or questions about anything that we discussed, or this verse, or anything at all? Yes? We see what? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Even we see that the human form of life, as aspiring devotees, we have this knowledge and we have some intelligence, but we still also sometimes waste our time. So how can you just touch on a few practical points of how we can come out of this condition of wasting time?
Well, I'm not the right person to ask because I waste a lot of my time too. But I think I've heard Prabhupada say that not even a moment should be wasted, not used for Krishna. And then there's many descriptions of great souls who were always they not even wasted 1 second of life. They were always meditating. They had tears in their eyes. They're always meditating on the Supreme Lord. They not for half of a second stop that kind of meditation. So one of the ways to keep out from diverting one's attention is to read constantly, is to every free moment to read Prabhupada's books and to chant Hare Krishna. I've noticed that sometimes even people who are initiated tend to leave active service in Krishna consciousness because they don't read Prabhupada's books, they don't understand the philosophy, or they don't chant very often. So this is one of the secrets of success, to constantly chant and to constantly read. There's a lot of free time for human beings to have, and in that free time, we certainly there's a lot of philosophy in Prabhupada's books, on our phones and on our computers and in the books, and there. I think one of the things that Prabhupada said was that my only complaint is that people don't read my books. When we think of how he would arise sometimes at 1 or 2 in the morning and work on his books. And he at one point said that I'm not writing these books. I'm just taking dictation from Krishna. Not in those words, but that's basically what he was saying. That it's not my own words. These are the words of Krishna. I mean, he did say that, and someone reiterated that in one of the memories tapes. So if we read the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, we're actually reading Krishna's words, even though it appears to be one of Krishna's followers who was translating them, and many other people did some editing and so on and so forth. But that's one of the secrets to success that I follow anyway. Anything else? Yes?
Maharaj, so Prabhupada said you shouldn't hoard money, but as Guru Master said, necessary that you have to save up, a certain amount of money, bank a certain amount of money, because there's always unknown expenses that keep coming up. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, well, that's a kind of hotly debated topic, whether 50% means 50% of profits or 50% of gross, and whether it's all right to have to bank money. I think Prabhupada used the word hoard. I don't know if he said hoard or hold, but there is a difference. I mean, some people just like to look at their bank accounts and see that there's over $30,000 in it and think, oh well, that's good. Then I'm happy. And other people think when it gets below a certain level, I'm unhappy. That's not a good. That's a kind of hoarding. But we do have to pay for insurance. We have to pay for children's clothes. We have to pay for their education. So there's something to be said for keeping some money aside. And I think Prabhupada has said that for personal emergencies, and that can be considered an emergency in a sense. If you don't have money, you can't get a job or a very good job. So in a sense, it is an emergency. And it's a very hotly debated topic. What is hoarding money and what is not hoarding money? I think in earlier times when Prabhupada was on this planet, there were few people that had their own houses, and there were few people that were householders. Every resource, including every penny, not every penny, but almost every penny, was used for either printing books or advancing the cause of Krishna consciousness. But even Prabhupada in his later times, in October of 1977, there was some money. He had some money in the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust accounts, and he used that money to build temples and to print books, and to help people that needed it for those kinds of things. So there is an argument for having at least some stash of money somewhere for some reason. But one shouldn't become a hoarder or like a King Midas, just relishing the fact that I've got a lot of gold or I have a lot of wealth or that sort of thing. And that goes on. I mean, I've heard that one of the wealthiest men in the world's hobby is to build rocket ships, and that he flies them into outer space and back. So that's an example of sort of hoarding. I mean, what's the use of flying a rocket? I mean, this person and a lot of people on this planet believe that because they believe there's an overpopulation problem, that the earth isn't going to support everybody. There's not enough food to go around. And so they're exploring outer space and the possibility of building colonies on other planets so that there will be enough to go around. I mean, that's going on, unfortunately. But anyway, one shouldn't be a hoarder. I guess that's the message that comes through. Anything else? I think we'll stop there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.